Some scientific luminaries really want their foundations to remain untouched, not to be disturbed by the oddities that stick out from these foundations in all directions. For this, they are even willing to forget how to tell the difference between the height of a doorway and the height of a ceiling. They are ready to brand technical elements as beautifully useless. It seems like, for the sake of what's familiar, they're ready to equate a military parade with a gay parade. After all, aren't there useless decorations and marching in both cases? It turns out that not everyone is able to tell a circle from a square, especially when they don't want to notice the difference. Actually, anyone can read the comments that these bright minds have written here. And it all started with this. Knights, as the legends tell us, had their oddities. If a knight was lost, his entire army was physically wiped out, which gave the army a pretty good incentive to protect the knight. This strange custom is well known from documents, although historians can't explain it at all. It is also known that damaging or even touching the knight by any of the soldiers was punished by immediate death, no matter who the person was. That is, only a knight could capture another knight. Later, the knight would be replaced by a banner with a light bulb on the pole and a face on the banner's cloth, the loss of which is also considered a complete defeat of the unit, but with less dire consequences. There are known cases in history when knights fought battles for several days while the army watched from the sidelines smoking. It's no coincidence they say the theater of war might have actually been a theater, and only later did the spectators start punching each other in the face. And so, when the knight surrendered to the mercy of the victor, his warriors were reassigned to the winner with the defeated knight's consent. Otherwise, they would have simply been eliminated. That is, the reassignment happened with the consent of the losing side. Something like a surrender pact rather than just the fact of victory itself. Knights didn't take off their armor outside the castle, which is already strange. On a campaign for many weeks in armor, you pee and poop right in there, and to keep it from smelling too bad, they pour water on you through the raised visor or the neck joint. Here, historians have a theory that the chronicles don't specify exactly how to pour water on a knight. But there is a clear explanation that you need to pour it inside from above and at least several times a day. It's probably easiest to do this through the visor that opens. Some helmets are even made like funnels, meaning the gap inside faces upward. So you're a knight, inside that piece of metal you get doused with water several times a day, and you're also wearing a padded undergarment which of course gets wet. The question is, how many days will it take before you keel over in there without even making it to the battlefield, just sitting in that wet mess? Historians didn't fabricate this. They uncovered the information from archives and applied it as best they could. It's nothing for historians to tell us about thousands of slaves hauling stones for the pyramids, carved with bronze chisels. What's stopping them from telling us about how a knight was dressed in the field? What difference does it make if they can do without a helmet and without a head? There's a headless horseman, so why can't there be a headless knight? From the everyday stories that have come down to us about knights, we can tell that they're not very much like people. At the very least, their way of life is different from the usual routine and type A that people are used to. In engravings and even portraits, you can see a fully metal-clad knight and people accompanying him with open faces and cuirass type armor. How long would you last in such voluntary confinement without leaving the castle? The castles themselves, upon closer inspection of the inhabitants' way of life, are not well suited. Drafty and kind of slippery, they look more like prisons than desirable homes. Would you yourself want to spend all your days there if you were the lord of the surrounding lands? And what about traveling fully armored, or even sleeping in armor? After all, they even say that a knight slept standing up. What kind of endurance and willpower to win does it take to relieve yourself right in your pants, sit in armor, in wet clothes, in your own floating excretions, and even sleep standing up? Yes, you'll rot alive in there. In other words, the behavior of knights who existed in full metal armor is nothing like the behavior of ordinary people, except maybe from a distance and only approximately. However, climbing out of your mobile aquarium and scaring the whole neighborhood also doesn't make sense. People will immediately band together to fight the monster and beat it to death. Even if they're really scared, they'll still beat it no matter the losses. Unless the alien is, well, really big and really scary. As of today, there are about 32,000 exhibits. Of these, about 3,840 are cuirasses, helmets and shields, around 2,414 pieces of various bladed weapons, about 5,395 polearms, 3,800 firearms, and 4,200 pistols. In addition, there is a large number of shooting accessories available. With such an arsenal, it would be quite possible to arm up to 5,000 soldiers. For the most part, the weapons were intended for infantry and cavalry soldiers of the 16th and 17th centuries. There are also weapons belonging to officers, richly decorated, crafted by masters from Innsbruck, Augsburg and Nuremberg. Instead of just cutting off his head, this guy for some reason sticks his sword somewhere inside, trying to open him up like a can, where under the fabric of the shirt it turns out there's something else. It kind of reminds you of gutting a crab, a lobster, a shrimp, a snail or a turtle. These knights aren't very warlike. The cutest one is on the right. You can tell right away he's been through a lot of battles. His face has become truly remarkable. Oh, that helmet looks more like it's from a guild of craftsmen or a crew of handymen who were given a choice of where to hang out. And they chose, fixed it up and started living there until they got kicked out. To some, a workshop full of equipment and special protection is anything you want, but not a warrior's helmet. They'd laugh at him with a face like that. And of course, the horizontal slit in the helmet during battle is absolutely necessary to spit out something insulting at the enemy, or maybe even your teeth. A diving suit with boots and a helmet could also be called knightly, and write a bunch of scientific papers claiming that it's meant for powerful support of advancing infantry. Even better, put such a writer into that suit and let him try to support the infantry himself. And here's another interesting example of an armored suit design. Let's pay attention to the arms and try to fit a normal person in there. And here is a side view of the same suit. Let's pay attention to the head, the exact position of the back of the head relative to the line of the back. We try to walk on our toes, push off and fall forward. We try to grab the handle with our hands, but it slips out. Our fingers are inside the metal. Here's another interesting example. Look at the helmet and imagine a geonormal person. The eye line, but the opening for the head seems a bit too small. But the most interesting thing is the shoulder plates. Here, they're rigidly fixed to the base. The arm can't reach forward. There's no degree of freedom. And here's another thing about the eyeline, a perfect picture. I'm going by the instruments. A handsome guy in full view. What else is known about knights in full armor? That even their calf joints are solid and there's no heel as such. That is, the boot immediately bends into the foot. At the same time, you can only slide your foot forward through a solid calf armor by either detaching the foot piece, not having a foot, or stretching the armor. Or the armor is several sizes too big, or you have very thin or flexible legs. But later armor already had doors at the calf joint. You might wonder why. However, their fastening was quite flimsy, like on laces. Early helmets also didn't have doors. The visor only started to open later, and you had to put your head through the neck opening. At the same time, it's not a sweater, not a knitted material that stretches, and not jeans that you can pull on. It's metal. Anyone who wants to can try to stick their head into a 10-liter jar through its narrow neck. Moreover, for some reason, there were corrugated plates attached to the helmets around the ear area. You can see them clearly in the engravings. There were fake ears or something like a membrane, a microphone, a speaker, and not only on the helmet. At the same time, the quality of craftsmanship of the solid armor is significantly higher than that of the later ones. Other oddities related to the Iron Knights are also known from documents. Legends tell us that even with his head cut off, such a knight could still fight. And in engravings we can see that removing the head like a limb did not mean defeat for the knight. He had to be pried out of his armor with a sword to the neck openings. This is from historians' explanations, or like if one head was chopped off along with the helmet, they just put on another one.